Welcome to another episode of the Not Scrum Dumb podcast. We are going to tackle 5 myths surrounding the Scrum values that are often misunderstood or even overlooked. I'm your host, Andriana Marshall, professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org, and that is my amazing co host.
Grand Scrum Master Scott.
So, the first one we're going to talk about is commitment means rigidly sticking to initial plans. You want to tackle this one first, Scott?
Sure, I'll talk about that one, Andriana. Commitment means rigidly sticking to initial plans. Hmm. If you're sprint planning and you allow your team to plan out the entire sprint, you might be under the illusion that's the case, but no, because you got to keep in mind, we're in an environment where it is complex. We don't know how to get to the goal. So sticking to the plan may give us the illusion that we're going to get to our destination, especially if we're in a complex domain. No, the goal in Scrum is to get to the goal. How we get there is definitely likely to change along the way, but the goal is to get to the goal, just like we have goals in our personal lives. We probably create a little plan before we even get started, but along the way, something happened, aka it could be life. It could be life happens, and we inspect and adapt. And the goal is to get to the goal. And I believe more often than not, we do accomplish our goal, but it's not a straight line to that destination. Adriana.
Commitment is about giving our best to each other. It means that I'm dedicated to giving my best to the goal that we've set out. It doesn't mean that the plan won't change. It just means that if I'm on my journey to achieve X feature, I'm not going to quit in the middle of it. Like, I'm not going to abandon it. I'm not going to stop talking to my team members. It means I'm committed to giving my best to you as we go through this journey to achieve this goal.
Another thing I want to add to that, Andron, is commitment in Scrum means that we're going to do our best. You alluded to that earlier. It specifically means that we're going to do our best and we're going to help each other out, as you called out. And oftentimes we're going to have to help organizations understand what that version of commitment means because to the organization, let's say that we take in 15 product backlog items at sprint planning, and then we get to the sprint review and we only completed 10 of those product backlog items. Then the organization may ask, or stakeholders may ask, "Hey, Scott, what's going on with the team? What do you mean? They only completed 10 product backlog items." Well, stakeholder, you're asking the wrong question. What question should I be asking? Did we accomplish the sprint goal? Yeah. You see the retraining that goes on there. In Scrum, the goal is about getting to the goal, not about completing the task.
And so the next thing I think that helps with commitment is focus. But in this situation, the myth is focus is only about completing tasks and user stories. Now, you don't even have to use a user story, but that's a whole different myth to bust at a different time. But in this situation, do you want to kick us off, Scott?
Focus only on completing tasks and user stories. I touched on that in the previous myth. No, the focus is about getting to the goal. We want to complete the bare minimum of tasks. Thinking about the agile principle, simplicity is the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. So we always want to keep that in mind as we navigating through these waters. That would be my take on that. Andriana?
Yeah, I would agree. It's about understanding and focusing on the goal itself. What are our customer needs and continuously prioritizing the most valuable work. I don't really care the number of tasks a team is completing if it's not valuable or if you don't achieve your goal. So it's not just about the task itself. And I think that throws a lot of people off because they think in their sprint, I must finish every single task. And that's a whole different myth as well. But we want you to focus on the goal, not the task itself, because that can change. So that also goes into what I think actually helps us focus and continuously get better is openness. But one of the myths that people are dealing with openness is they think it means sharing without filter. And I will say that I was a victim of this. I'm still no joking. I still sometimes share a little with too much, maybe without enough of a filter, but here I am on YouTube doing it again. This is this is a fun one that I like. We all need to stay respectful. We don't want to hurt people. Really, openness is about our work being transparent. So it's visible, it's understood that we're actually speaking honestly, that you don't have to hurt someone's feelings to be honest or even to be direct. You don't have to hurt anyone's feelings or be without a filter. And I think that's what may be misunderstood in this one. Anything else, Scott?
Yeah, I love it. Yes. Openness means sharing everything about any filter was something, Andriana, kind of what you mentioned before. I had to learn about that topic. And I remember reading Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead or Daring Greatly. I can't remember which one. But I remember that when I would go have my quarterly meetings with my direct manager, that he or she would ask about, "Hey, how's the team doing?" Then they would ask specific details. "How's so and so doing?" And I would just divulge all kinds of information, just being transparent to my boss. But after reading Brene Brown's book, openness is not about sharing everything, because if I talk to an individual about a personal circumstances, whether I'm talking to my boss, whether I'm talking to my wife, whether I'm talking to my dog, my girlfriend, whatever that may be, that conversation happened in private, and that person is trusting me to keep that information with them. So even with my boss, which I never thought about before until I read this book, that would have been a breach of trust. So now my conversation with my boss is when they ask me personal information about a person on the Scrum team, I'm like, if that person wants to tell you about those intimate details, then I recommend you go speak to that person. But they spoke to me in private about that particular matter. So then just give you an example that you may not have thought about, which I didn't. I've been in management in the space for years, and I just learned that probably about 4 years ago from reading that book. Like, wow, I thought I was just being open, transparent, not realizing, but at the same time, I was potentially negating trust with that individuals or individuals that I was talking to my boss about. So I don't do that anymore. Scott, what's going on in the sprint retrospective? The sprint retrospective is a private event for the Scrum team. We good. If there's anything highlighted we need you to do, we'll let you know. We'll let you know. Adriana, your thoughts.
So that's it. And I think that leads us to respecting others, respecting boundaries. And let's go into one of the myths about respect, which is only being polite and nice. Sometimes telling someone the exact truth is the nicest thing you can do. I do think there is some politeness and niceness to this. We just talked about openness, making sure how you're phrasing things and how you're presenting them. I think absolutely matters. But I don't think respect is limited to being polite and nice. The valuable thing about working on a team is having diverse perspectives and having a safe enough environment where you can be open and honest. What do you think, Scott?
I totally agree. Respect is only about being polite and nice. Myth. I'm thinking about sometimes when I'm at daily scrum, I may get a developer ask me, Scott, can you create a product backlog item for me and put it in Jira, which is a platform that we use in an agile space? I have grown to the point of my answer to that question is, developer, do you not know how to create a product backlog item in Jira? I'm happy to show you, but I don't want to create a habit of me doing your work. Did y'all see respect? Because I don't want to be disrespected and set the stage that when I go on the scrum team, you thinking I'm going to be a secretary. I'm not your secretary. You know, so, no, I'm not your admin. No, a scrum master is a true leader, according to the scrum guide and according to the way I believe and navigate in the role. Andriana, that's all I have to say on the respect aspect.
Yeah, and I think that takes a lot of courage to do. And our final myth is courage is about taking risks without considering consequences. And I think courage is not just about if I'm taking a risk or even consequences. It could be as simple as speaking up when you notice something is wrong. It could be challenging something that is maybe not right or that you see that's a little off, or maybe it's even highlighting some of the risks. So it could be making difficult decisions. There are so many things that courage could mean for so many different people. And I know sometimes we think, oh, this person may be a little reckless or this, but it doesn't mean they haven't counted the cost of what they're doing. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Do you have anything to add, Scott?
Some great points. Courage is about taking risks without considering consequences. We consider the consequences as much as possible. And I'm thinking about when we're at sprint planning, where we trying to solve something and we run an experiment. Remember, it's just an experiment. So when we get to the sprint review, the question becomes, are we going to learn from if we didn't get it done? Let's learn from our failures and have the courage to say, hey, look, this probably wasn't the best approach, but just learn from those examples and keep moving forward. Now, on an individual standpoint, each individual, how do you create an environment where courage flourishes in your environment? It's totally up to you and your scrum team. But one thing I would say on an individual tip, I'm thinking about Oprah Winfrey's quote. Sometimes you got to teach people how to treat you. So I'm thinking about the scrum master who looks like a secretary. I'm thinking about the product owner who's nothing but a glorified order taker. I'm thinking about the developers don't have the courage to say, "Well, you shouldn't be doing it that way. You have an idea to do it better than what the product owner is telling you. Why don't you raise your hand and say something?" Hmm, I'm gonna stop right there before we get too deep.
Yeah. I think
Audra,
another thing to ask is courage is saying, "Can we live without taking this risk?" Because in life, sometimes you need to take that risk in order to reach a level that you haven't reached, whether that's with your organization or individually. But all right. Hopefully, you've had the courage to like and subscribe. And if you stayed all the way to the end, then you have an attention span greater than the goldfish. We have some really awesome videos that you should check out and learn about more about our channel. There are some videos that even talk a little bit about our background and our experience. But thank you for watching.
be legendary, but not Scrum Dumb.